Hi kids. So for today's talk, I'm not going to use the book we've used for the last 3 weeks because the person I'm going to talk to you about today doesn't feature in it. The man I want to talk to you about was born in Morley just over 200 years ago in 1803. And I'm sure that as soon as I tell you who it is, lots of the grown-ups listening into this bit will recognise his name. Because his name was Titus Salt. Titus's mum and dad, Daniel and Grace, were Bible-loving people. And from being a very young boy, Titus was taught to cherish his Bible, to love it, to pray, and to serve and to follow God. Well, like many people who lived around this area, when Titus grew up, he worked in the woolen trade, spinning and weaving wool, making woolen fabrics. In fact, Titus worked in his father's business, which was called Daniel Salt and Son. One day, Titus was visiting a mill in Liverpool when he came across a different type of wool from the one he was used to working with. This wool wasn't sheep's wool, it was alpaca wool. Now, an alpaca is like a small llama from a long way away in Peru. But maybe some of you have seen one somewhere closer to home, at a farm or maybe a wildlife park. Anyway, Titus's new alpaca fabric was very successful. In fact, it was so successful that Daniel Salt and Son grew so big that they had 5 mills. Titus was so successful he even became mayor of Bradford. In 1850, he decided to build one big mill. It was going to be large enough to have all of the firm's wool production in one place. But the thing was, Bradford was already very full of mills. It was very smoky and very dirty and had lots of people all packed together and living quite unhealthily. So he decided to buy some land about 3 miles outside Bradford, where the air was a bit cleaner and healthier. There was a nearby railway line and a river and a canal to provide all the water that his mill would need. But Titus didn't just build a mill. He also wanted to look after all the people who worked for him. So he built them houses, and he built a church and a hospital, a school, a library, a park, and lots more besides. In fact, he built a whole village with everything you'd need. And most of it is still there, not that far away from here at all. And I know that at least 2 of the children listening to this talk have even been inside Titus's mill, and they've played in the park that he created. Maybe more of you have as well. The mill is called Salt's Mill, and the village he built is called Saltaire. Well as doing all those things to look after the people who worked for him, Titus was very kind, and he also gave lots of money to his church. But even though his parents had taught him to respect God, it wasn't until Titus was starting to get a bit older that he realised he wasn't really a true friend of Jesus at all. However, one day after hearing the preacher talking in church, Titus went up to him and asked him, "What must I do to be saved?" Or in other words, how can I become Jesus' friend forever? Well, the preacher taught him all about how to ask Jesus to be his friend, and taught him how Jesus would help him get to heaven. And from that day on, Titus followed Jesus. Titus was very rich, but it became very important to him to help other people to get to know Jesus. And the history books tell us he gave lots of money to different Christian charities. Some of his money went to help Sunday schools teach people about Jesus, and he also gave lots of gifts of money to a place in London called London City Mission, and he provided money to help lots of men to train as preachers so they could teach people about Jesus too. In 1869, when he was 66 years old, Queen Victoria gave Titus a knighthood, which meant he became Sir Titus Salt. And that was because of his success in the business and because of all the generous things he'd done for his workers and for lots of other people in Bradford and even further away. But even though he was a sir and he had all that money, when Titus was nearing the end of his life and somebody asked him about all the money he'd earned and all the good things he'd done and about his hope of going to heaven after he died, Titus answered that all of his hope of getting to heaven was in Jesus. Nothing else mattered to him. And it's said that some of Titus's last words before he died were the words, "How kind Jesus is to me." Titus knew that being a friend of Jesus was far more important than any of the things he had in this world. And that is what I'd like you to leave you to think about this morning. What is most important to you? Is it all the things you have, or is it being a friend of Jesus?